What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and the group stage is officially done for this World Cup. What a finale we had. A lot of very interesting results, so I'm just going to quickly go through and touch on all the different groups and also look ahead to the first round of the knockouts and just sort of attempt to predict what's going to happen, because let's be honest, there's no predicting this World Cup anymore. It's anybody's match. And I hope that people realize that, because so many people are still claiming, oh, this one team's got it. I'm just like, how can you say that after what we've witnessed? But anyways, starting off in Group A, Netherlands did get the job done against Qatar. Not too surprising. Honestly, for most of these groups, I only watched one of the matches, and it was more so the decisive match. You know, for this one, Netherlands-Qatar, Netherlands should easily win, and I think they did. I think they won by 2. But watching Senegal-Ecuador, that was the one was going to be very interesting to see what happened. And Senegal managed to pull through, which, for me personally, being a Chelsea fan, I didn't mind seeing Koulibaly and Mendy win, but it was a pretty tense match throughout. You know, neither team really dominated the other one. It was pretty back and forth. So good, exciting match to watch. And for Senegal, in my opinion, without Mane, I feel like with him they probably would have been a little bit more in the driver's seat for this group. But without him, the fact that they still managed to make it through, I do think it's a good achievement for them, and it'll make them feel good that they managed it without, in my opinion, their best player. Into Group B, a little bit more of an interesting dynamic. You know, there are a few groups very similar to this where anybody could have gone through. So in that vein of thinking, England getting the win over Wales, not too surprising, especially after what happened with Wales and Iran. And England, they needed to bounce back. And you kind of expected a couple of these players that haven't gotten to play much, you know, like Foden. You expect them to really show out and show, hey, this is what you've been missing. So I'm not too surprised that they dominated that match. For the U.S. versus Iran, because apparently even if we don't live in the country, we still have to pronounce it like people do in that country now, which is stupid because we don't say Mexico, we don't say Brazil, we say it like from where we are. You know, am I supposed to start suddenly speaking other languages when I'm talking about stuff from other countries? Like, God, people get offended over the stupidest things. But anyways, our game versus Iran, because that's how we say it, it was too close for comfort. You know, and I don't want to get into a full review of the whole game, but it felt very much like the Wales match, where Berhalter showed he doesn't have the technical and tactical skill set to figure out how to manage a match whenever they're ahead. And it's why, in my opinion, we're still quite a ways away from being anywhere near the level that some people think we are. You know, the fact that we're 16th in the world, come on, we're not anywhere near the top 10. We're probably like, I would say, 25th. It's just we have a couple players that work hard, and you know, as a team we work hard, but talent and coaching wise, we're still quite a ways away. It'll be a shock if we manage to get past Netherlands in the first round, but I'll get to that. But yeah, so for the U.S., it was a good result. Ultimately, even though it was a little scary, it's a good motivator for the group. You know, we managed to make it out of the group stage, and that was kind of, I think, the goal for this tournament, in my opinion. You know, a lot of people are shooting way higher than they should, but getting out of the group stage in this group, it's expected, but also not the easiest task. You know, Wales and Iran, not the easiest teams to play against. They're two teams that are going to be a bit rough. They're going to have their hard workers on the team. Wales has a couple of very talented players mixed in there. So it was always going to be a tough ask to get out of the group, but I still think that should have been the expectation, and they met that expectation. So in my opinion, I'm happy with it. I think it was deserved based on the performance, at least in the first half. Second half was a little more iffy, but on to the knockout rounds for these two groups, though. Netherlands versus the U.S. Again, I'm not really expecting us to win. It would be great because I don't really like the Netherlands because, like I said in an earlier video, it feels like they always have the easy matches in every tournament that I've seen recently in the past Euros. It feels like they always have really easy groups. You know, they just sort of cruise through because they have nobody really else to challenge them. In this one, like I said, the hardest challenge was Senegal, and even then they lost Mane right before the tournament, so it wasn't even that difficult. And then on top of that, I'm not a big fan of Van Dijk. I don't like De Boer because of what he did to Atlanta United. So there are just a few things about Netherlands I'm like, I really hope we beat them. Don't think we are going to, but it would be fantastic if we did. But for England Senegal, that will be a very interesting match to see what happens. Mainly because, from England's point of view, they'll be going in expecting to win. They just showed out against Wales. They showed their quality. Senegal, while a difficult team, are not the hardest, so it should be a game that they're winning. But it feels like games that England should win, they don't always win. It feels like they slip up about 50% of the time, maybe. So it's going to be a pretty interesting game, in my opinion, and not a super easy one to call. So I'm thinking Netherlands will probably win that game. I do expect England to win. I will say England's going to win it, but I'm not like 100% sold on the idea that they're definitely going to win, because Senegal have the ability to mix it up a bit, and if England don't come out ready to play, they may not be able to get past them. So into Group C, had a little bit of drama here with this one. Argentina beating Poland. Poland just sort of hanging on almost. I was really disappointed in this game because it was the one that I watched, and I expected it to be a little bit more interesting. Poland are not the best team. It really is Argentina, and then you got like Poland, and then you got Mexico, and then you got Saudi Arabia. Not saying that that doesn't mean they can't win, but Poland are still a team that have the ability to mix it up a little bit. It feels like they seem like they should have that ability. They should have the capability of causing a team like Argentina a bit of trouble. But instead, what ended up happening is it felt like they went into the match just sort of saying, all right, we just don't need to lose by that much and we'll be fine. We'll be through. And it nearly backfired, giving away 2 goals, and then Mexico's up by 2. And now all of a sudden it just takes 1 goal from either Mexico or Argentina and they're out. So I was pretty disappointed in the way they approached the match, and it made me frustrated because I want to see good games. And thankfully we did get some later on. But for the final match, I wanted to see, just go for it. Show me something entertaining. Show me that you want to go win. And it just felt like they just didn't want to lose by too much. So they did manage to make it through. For Mexico, heartbreaking, knowing that they were just 1 goal away and then they can't finish. And from what I saw in the highlights, they peppered the goal. It felt like they had so many chances they just couldn't put it away. And then Saudi Arabia sneak one late at the end. It's the heartbreak that makes you love watching the sport and watching these big tournaments like the World Cup, because that's the type of drama that always shows up. The last gasp. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. So for Argentina, well deserved. For Poland, in my opinion, not that well deserved. Very disappointing from them. Group D, again, France, easiest group in the tournament, and while a loss against Tunisia does on paper look embarrassing, it also comes with the idea of, well, they did have pretty much their entire B team in. So for the B team's point of view, that will be embarrassing. They'll look at that and say, guys, come on. We should be beating Tunisia. I know we're not up there on the same level with, some of these other talented players, but we should be beating Tunisia. We shouldn't be losing to them, definitely. So that was the match I didn't watch, so I don't really know if it was kind of back and forth, if France were creating chances and then Tunisia just snuck one. I don't know if that's what happened, but on paper, seeing a 1-0 loss, it's not the best look for them, and it's something that I don't think it's going to kill their spirit. I think more than anything, it'll probably motivate them in the next round to say, all right, no, we're better than that, so let's go ahead and kick it back up into gear and get these first team players back in. For Australia, though, in my opinion, big result. For them to go from where they were at the end of the first round, losing to France, seeming like they're chasing an uphill battle, and now here they are, and they've beaten Tunisia, now they beat Denmark. Great result for them. And it's not necessarily one that I'm thinking, okay, they're going to make a run in the tournament or anything like that, but it will be interesting to see how they fare against Argentina. Do they do what they did against Tunisia and Denmark? Do they try to search for that goal and then maybe poke one early and then just try to pack it in? Because honestly, that's what they did well in both of their wins. They scored and then they parked the bus. So they're very talented at doing that, but at the same time, that means you got to go score against Argentina, which is no easy feat. But for Denmark, though, quickly touching on them, really embarrassing. And not even just because they're 10th in the rankings, because, if you're somebody like me, the FIFA rankings most of the time are kind of crap. Like, they do have some semblance of where teams are, but when you've got Belgium, who are at the top and have been for a while, and they haven't won a single trophy, it kind of makes you go, okay, what are these rankings really showing then? And what they show is, they do well in the qualifiers and they do well leading up to the end of the tournament, but when they get to those finals, they're just not there. They're not the team that can carry it all the way to the final. That really the mentality, I think, of the team is what holds them back. But anyways, I just realized I went off on a weird tangent about Belgium. Denmark, though, being 10th in the FIFA rankings should mean something, but in my opinion, looking at the team they had, looking at the players they had, I don't really think they're worthy of the 10th spot. I know that sounds really haughty, who are you to say? I just don't think they are the 10th best team in the world. I think they're more like 15, 20, somewhere in there. They're good, they have some solid players, but they're not that good. And I think, especially with some of these players, the form they've been in this season specifically, I really don't think they were 10th best in the world. I think they were closer down to 25. So I think this just kind of shows the only team they managed to pick a point off of was Tunisia. That's pretty sad. So they'll be very disappointed. Into the round of 16, you've got Australia versus Argentina. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see if Australia managed to get that early goal and then pack it in. I do expect Argentina to just kind of run over them, though, mainly because I think Argentina, with these last two games, showed they've turned that corner now, where from the first game, things weren't really clicking, they weren't finding the net, they weren't really connecting passes very well. They've started to find that rhythm a bit more, so now they're looking a bit more like the threat that they should be. So they should be able to beat a team pretty easily, a team like Australia at least. So I do expect that. France versus Poland, based on what I saw from Poland in the final match, I expect France to sort of run over them too. So both of those games should be pretty straightforward. I say that there are a lot of games I thought were going to be straightforward for this final round and weren't, so anything can still happen, but from what my expectations are now, I expect it to be Argentina and France making it through to the quarterfinals. Into Group E, talk about a crazy group. The 60 seconds where Costa Rica were beating Germany and Japan were beating Spain, and suddenly Costa Rica and Japan were going through to the round of 16 over Spain and Germany was just nuts. Oh God, I'm still a little choked up remembering it, but holy crap. And for me, the big talking point in that is Costa Rica. Because they were obviously very disappointing in the first match against Spain. They really showed out these last two matches. Beating Japan, who we've seen clearly they know how to play. They know how to mix it up. So beating Japan was no easy feat. And then coming back from being a goal down against Germany. Now, granted, not the strongest German side. There were some issues, some players that didn't start, some players that did start. But still, a very talented German side with only a few changes to their normal starting 11. The fact that they managed to come back and were leading for a second. Their defense let them down in the end, and they managed to concede 3 more and go down 4-2. But still, they fought hard, and they really gave a good showing of themselves in the final match. And in my opinion, from where they were in the first match, huge step up. I don't really rate them that highly, but they at least went down fighting, and I have to commend them for that effort. For Germany, obviously hugely disappointing. And some of these players, some of the older players that have been there for a while, it will be very disappointing that this is probably their last World Cup and they couldn't do anything with it. There are some younger players that will have a chance in 4 years to make up for what happened here, but I mean, losing to Japan wasn't good enough. Drawing against Spain, you look at it, and Spain obviously are a good team, but still, I mean, they needed to get that win and they couldn't get it done. And even what happened with Costa Rica, they managed to eke out the win in the end, but it was not an easy performance for them. So, yeah, for Germany, hugely disappointing. And I feel like for Hansi Flick, I don't know if this is going to be his last match. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not, but it definitely feels like he's going to be maybe under a bit of pressure after what happened here. And probably the next couple tournaments, the Euros, whenever, I think that happens next year. I don't remember. But for the next Euros, there probably will be a bit of an expectation of, hey, we need something here. What happened in the World Cup was not good enough, so let's see something if he makes it that far. So for Japan, huge result, obviously. They managed to knock off Germany and Spain in this group. The loss to Costa Rica is kind of a weird one, knowing that. But yeah, I mean, just solid performance from them. They really know. I think a lot of the credit has to go to the manager, because that's 2 games now where they're behind 1-0 at the half, and they just come out flying in the second half. And this was the one group that I did have both games on at the same time, because both of these games were interesting. I didn't think they were going to be. I thought at one point I could just turn off the Spain-Japan game, but then all of a sudden second half starts and they made it interesting again. So they'll be a fun team to watch, I feel like. As long as they can stay in the tournament, I think they'll be a team that can mix it up. And even if you think you're ahead in the first half, you think you've got it handled, they've shown they have the ability to turn it around and take the game back. And that's always a fun feeling. For Spain, obviously losing to Japan is not a great feeling. And it really is. You look at France's loss to Tunisia. That one, you think, okay, well, that's not going to be a morale killer because they made a lot of changes. It was kind of a free hit, basically. Disappointing to lose, but not going to kill your morale. For Spain, they didn't necessarily have to win, but to lose to Japan, and they didn't make. I don't think they made a whole lot of changes to their lineup. I know a few players started, like Carvajal and Murata. I don't think started previously in the tournament, so there were a few players that did get subbed in or get switched into the starting lineup. But still, losing to Japan when you really need a win. You shouldn't be just sort of accepting a loss. You should be like, no, we should be winning this, and we should be easily handling our business, making sure we're through to the round of 16, no problem. And then to just give it away like that. And honestly, again, for a second, looked like they could have been going out. For them, I will wonder if the morale might start to drop a little bit after this result. So that they'll definitely be an interesting watch for the first round of knockouts, just to see how they bounce back from this, or do they kind of drop off a bit more because the morale is low. So just food for thought there. Group F on the other side of it, Morocco, Croatia going through, and both very well deserved. Belgium, I already kind of talked about it before, and honestly, this is why I kind of paused for a second, because I'm thinking, wait a minute, why am I talking about Belgium? I'm not even there yet. Yeah, Belgium, their years, I think it was De Bruyne that said it, their years are past them. And I think this tournament really showed just how far gone they are. It's a weird feeling to look at this Belgium side and look at all these players that, De Bruyne, Hazard, Lukaku, Courtois. I mean, so many talented players that play to the top level, won a lot of trophies, and you're thinking, God, you got all these players fit in there, but they just don't fit well together. They all play such different styles that they don't work as a unit. And it shows so many times. It showed in the past, it showed with all the opportunities they had to challenge for the Euros, to challenge for past World Cups. So many moments where you look back and think, how did they not win that with that group that they had? It really does come down to, one, do your players play well together, and two, do you have a coach that can put it all together? And as much as I like Roberto Martinez, I don't think he's the coach that has that ability to take all these super talented players and put them together and make them work well together. I don't think he has that capability. He's better suited to take a bunch of average players and manage to get them to play above their level, like he has done in the past. So, but yeah, a very disappointing exit for them. Only beating Canada, who didn't win a single game. And for them, I think is it their first World Cup? It's definitely their first World Cup in a while. And obviously they with Alphonso Davies coming in, and they have started to get a few more players playing in and around, the big leagues. Obviously, they have had a little bit more of a talented group, but this kind of showed they're still not near that top level. They're still pretty low. So, for Morocco and Croatia, Morocco is definitely the one that I think will be the big surprise coming out of this group, because Croatia, they've already had some success in the past, so I don't think them making it out of this group is a huge surprise. Morocco, obviously I know Ziyech from Chelsea, but there are a lot of players that I'm thinking I don't really know these guys, but they played well. They played well together. They played well as a team, and they're a good example of you don't always need a ton of talent to manage to put together a good performance and a good result. So they'll be a fun one to watch going into the knockout stages. As far as who the matchups are here, Morocco versus Spain, that's going to be another interesting one, because again, Morocco, really good team. Spain, how are they functioning as a team right now? After that loss to Japan, how are they feeling? Are they going to work well together, or are they going to be constantly at each other's throats? And will that give Morocco the advantage they need? Personally, I'm going to call this one for Morocco. I mean, again, this one could go either way, but I think Morocco just have a little bit more of that unity in their squad right now. And while I think Spain will bounce back a bit from that loss against Japan, I just don't think they're going to have enough to fight back against this Moroccan team who are really going to push them. Croatia versus Japan, I mean, that's one that, again, could go either way. I think Croatia could probably dominate the first half, but if Japan makes those changes again, if they manage to find the right switches, they could easily turn back around on them. So that one, I'm gonna say Croatia. I think Croatia has probably just a little bit more talent than what we saw from Spain and Germany. I think they play a little bit better together than Spain and Germany did too. So I think they will have just enough talent to overturn Japan and any surprises they can throw at them in the second half. Into the final set of groups, and I apologize if I'm starting to sniff a lot because sinuses this time of year are awful. So Group G, Brazil, Switzerland heading through, both with 6 points. Pretty standard, I would say. Cameroon, Serbia, they're okay. They're not up there, but they're also not the worst teams in the tournament. So they're the teams that you don't really want to face early on, because you feel like they're going to be coming in on a bit of a high note. They're feeling like, oh yeah, we're in the World Cup, can you believe it? And they're going to be really busting it and really causing you some trouble. But then as they go on, the depth in the squad, their legs start to give out. Eventually, they become a bit easier to play against. So yeah, for those two, not too surprising to see them go out. A little bit surprising to see Cameroon get the win over Brazil today. Partially because, again, that's not one that I watched, but seeing the highlights and seeing how many times the Cameroonian keeper had to make saves, it was one of those matches where it feels like Brazil should have won that match. But the keeper and the luck, it worked in their favor, and Cameroon managed to get the goal that they needed. I don't know. It was pretty interesting to watch the highlights for it and think, wow, I can't believe this ended 1-0 to Cameroon. For Switzerland, big result for them. A bit of a back and forth match. Pretty exciting to see, goal, 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 goal. So I enjoyed watching it from that point of view, but I will say I'm rooting against Switzerland from here on out. Because, I mean, I know I didn't really like Xhaka, I didn't really like Shaqiri. I'm just not a fan of them. Seeing Xhaka today, though, I tell you what, man, I want somebody to just go in, studs up, back of his leg, because what a punk. Just all the little things he's doing, all the trying to rile people up, saying stuff when things are cooling down. I mean, that one bust-up he got into at the end, you could see things were starting to cool down, and then all of a sudden here he is chirping at somebody else, and now they're going at him. I'm just like, dude, shut up. Like, you're supposed to be this captain, this leader, and everybody's talking about, at Arsenal, he's such a great leader. I'm like, look at him, he's a punk. He's trying to start fights. He's trying to piss people off. That's not a leader. That's a punk. God, it was frustrating to watch. But it was a well-deserved victory for them because of how they played outside of the cheap little stuff. Into Group H, some controversy erupting here. So Portugal, got the job done. Actually, no, they didn't get the job done. What am I saying? No, Portugal didn't get the job done against South Korea, and that opened up the chance for South Korea to get into the round of 16. Pretty surprising, especially knowing that Portugal went up 1-0 in the first half. I kind of expected it to just be, all right, well, that's it then. Portugal are going to take care of business because they've had a pretty easy run of it so far. Ghana gave them a bit of trouble, but the referees helped them out. Uruguay, in my opinion, looking a little slower, a little too old, so Portugal handled the job there well enough. And so coming into this one, I'm thinking, all right, well, South Korea, they'll be fighting hard, but they should handle it pretty well. So for South Korea, good victory for them, good morale booster as well, and give them a little bit of a, I guess, energy boost before the round of 16, which they're going to need going up against Brazil. For Uruguay, though, this is where the controversy comes in. And it's not really controversy because you look at the non-penalty calls, and none of them were penalties. The one on, I think it was on Nunez, where I don't remember who made the tackle now. I think it was a Marty. But he comes kind of around him, and he does get his foot on the ball. And he doesn't, it's not like he comes through the man, like from behind or anything, and then gets his foot on the ball. Like, he reaches around him, gets his foot on the ball, and that's it. Like, the contact outside of that to bring Nunez down is minimal. And then Nunez, of course, falls to the ground. And then the final one, my God. Cavani's dive that set him and all of the Uruguayan players off at the referees at the end. I'm sorry. What are they complaining about? Like, if you watch it again, he literally sticks his leg in front of the defender and falls over. Like, he trips him and falls over asking for... Like, it's one thing, because it's one of my least favorite fouls that gets given. It's one thing if the defender's coming in, you're guarding the ball, and then you put your leg in front and they kick it trying to get to the ball. Like, that's one thing. I've seen that done before. I don't like it because I feel like you're initiating the contact, but they always give it. This is, you're both running at the ball, and then you stick your leg in front of him and then fall over. There's a difference between I'm guarding the ball and then you came through my leg to we're both going for it, I'm going to stick my leg in front of you, and oh my gosh, you fouled me. It was embarrassing to see his reaction, to see the reaction of all of the Uruguayan players and the coaches on the bench. It was also funny, but it was embarrassing. But yeah, no, that's the controversy in it. And knowing they needed one more goal, it does make it more dramatic, and it does heighten the intensity, and it makes it more entertaining from a neutral point of view. But being somebody who don't really like Cavani, I don't really like Nunez, I don't really like Suarez, I don't really like a lot of these players, I was okay with it. I was okay with the result. I was okay with seeing Suarez cry on the bench like a little baby, like he does throughout the match. That's fine with me. I will be interested to see what the reaction is going to be from FIFA after all of that, because chasing after the referees like they did and yelling at them and getting up in their face, and I think a couple of them shoved him, all of that is not okay. And I do think it's something that FIFA's going to need to crack down on, because if they don't, then other players will feel like, oh, well, look what they got away with. Also, Cavani punching the monitor, the VAR monitor. I mean, there's so much that they did there at the end that I'm thinking this should be like, you're done. Obviously a couple of them probably going to retire from international football after this. But there's some that's like, you got to find them. You gotta say, hey, you're done for at least a year. Because it's not okay. You can't allow that to happen. Because if you do, then it perpetuates other reactions. I still remember, what was his name? Medunjanin, I think that was who it was for Philadelphia Union. I remember watching that game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Bedoya gets himself sent off because he's already on a yellow. Referee's telling everybody to get out of the box for Atlanta United's penalty. Bedoya steps in again after he said, everybody get out. Card, he's gone. Medunjanin just goes off like a little toddler throwing a tantrum. Like, he yells at the referees, getting up in his face. He grabs his nuts at him. Like, all of this stuff, I'm thinking, okay, that's ridiculous. Like, that is embarrassing. It's something that you should crack down on, because players going off on the referee like that, it's one thing to yell at him. It's another thing to do what he did. Like, all of the insults and just again, toddler. And you're a grown adult. You're a professional. That's not how you handle yourself. He got like a 2-game ban, no fine or anything. I'm like, so what's going to stop him from doing that again if he gets pissed off at the referee? So we'll see what FIFA does. But yeah, seeing all that, I'm just like, this is ridiculous and this is childish. And I hope FIFA gives them the proper punishment that they deserve. Into the round of 16, though, for these two groups, like I said before, South Korea, Brazil, it'll probably end up being Brazil. I think South Korea, that energy boost that they'll get from managing to overturn their fortunes and be like, holy crap, I can't believe we made it. I think that'll make the first part of the game interesting, but I think as the game wears on, Brazil just have much more talent on the bench. So I think they'll be able to hold out and see off the challenge of South Korea. And then Portugal, Switzerland, that one should be a little bit more interesting because Portugal has not been at their best this tournament. I think the South Korea game kind of proves that, even though they were already in, so you could say, well, they're not really playing their best players. It's still not a good look for them, and they haven't really been convincing. Outside of the Uruguay game, which again, I do feel like, Uruguay's not really that great anymore. They were also helped out with a terrible handball that was called. So they got help in the Ghana game. They got help in the Uruguay game. There's a chance that they could get more help here, but they haven't really been looking fantastic. They've had some tournaments where they've done pretty well. In this one, they've been kind of iffy. So I think Switzerland, if they come out to play, if they hit them quickly and they manage to defend well, I think they have a good chance. I still am going to give it to Portugal, though. I still think they'll manage to get through. But that's just my opinion on it. And like I said, it's kind of impossible to call where this tournament's going to go from here, because there have been, in these final couple days of the final group stage, there have been so many good stories and so many twists and turns and things you didn't see coming, and exciting moments where even if a game did end in most of the matches, if it did end in a situation where, oh, well, this is what we were expecting, like, again, Germany beating Costa Rica, everybody's expecting that. Nobody expected it to be 2-1 Costa Rica for a minute, putting them and Japan through, and then ultimately, Germany turns it around and gets, like, I like it whenever a game can give us something like that, because then it's more entertaining. If you just give me, well, Germany beat them 3-0, whoop-de-doo. That's kind of what I was expecting. Germany beat them 4-2, more interesting. Now I'm asking, how did they get there? What was the score like? So yeah, I really hope these exciting games continue. Obviously, I think the big thing that will happen when we get to these knockout stages is going to be the fact that we are going to be dealing with a lot more tired legs, and these teams that were flying high in the group stage and they were playing so well in the group stage because they had their first team players, and their first team players were fit and they were feeling it. A lot of that is going to start to drop off, because at some point you are going to start to feel it a bit more, especially you're playing in Qatar, so you're playing in the desert. It's not going to be the easiest environment to play in either. So I do think we will start to see a little bit more of a drop-off from some of these teams that have been outperforming themselves in the group stage. Teams like Japan or, who's the other one I was just talking about? I'm going to have to look it up real quick because I've already forgotten. Oh, South Korea. Morocco even. Like, teams that look so good in the group stage, will they carry that on to the knockout stages? Or are we going to start to see these more mature teams, these teams that have been here before, like your Spains, your Netherlands, your Frances? Are we going to see those teams with the deeper benches and with the more experienced players start to sort of get back that semblance of normalcy that I think a lot of us were expecting for some of these groups? I hope not, just because from a neutral point of view, I would love it if there were some more upsets heading into the knockout rounds. But it's just, it does seem like it's less likely the further we get into the tournament because of the lack of quality from some of these teams. But we'll see what happens next. I think that's about all there is to talk about here. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the final round of the group stage? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future World Cup reviews, and I'll see you guys after the round of 16. Peace out.